We had a situation here in the studio that required a complete reset of everything, and that created quite the problem for us. We ran the timer down. We apologize for that. Today, we are going to talk about a lot of stuff, and folks, I'm going to tell you, you don't want to miss this one because there are a lot of things very relevant to the modern day in which we live, and folks, I have to tell you, there is so much happening right now that we need to talk about. Now, I want to talk about Israel's history and how it relates to the Passover and how the Bible actually lays a precedent for us in understanding the future of the history or the future of Israel based on its history. And we're also going to talk about our future based on the history of Israel and what all of that means. Now, this is an important subject. We're also going to look at a video together from Bibi Netanyahu, which I think is a really important video. I'm going to show you guys that, and I'm going to actually show you some videos from some pretty angry and ugly terrorists that are going to prove a point that I think is very significant and really, really valuable. So, with all of that, I do want to say thank you for those of you that are supporting us, you guys that are supporting us on super stickers, super chats, all that kind of stuff. I will mention that here shortly. You guys are really great. I want to say that right off the bat. Thank you for all of your love and support. It means a lot to me and my family, and I can tell you this right now, it goes a long way. So let me do that very quickly. Let me just mention some of those super chats that have come in. Also, let me bring this up on Rumble because I don't think I have it on Rumble right now. Okay, there we go. I'm looking at the Rumble information right now. It's right in front of me. Okay, let's do this quickly because we've got a lot of material to get through with a little bit of time. So let's see here. Let me close this down. I got to find out where this is. Oh, it's right here. I am not very observant today. Okay, let's get into this. Okay, there we go. All right. Brad, I think you were the first one as usual, bro. Thank you. You say, Isra Harris, oh my goodness. The 21-year-old daughter of Ilhan Omar was suspended from Columbia University. She claims she was evicted and broke. I guess she should move back in with her mom / aunt and dad / uncle. Oh, Brad, one of these days, bro, reading your super chats are going to get me in big trouble. But it is kind of funny, which is why the humor is absolutely enjoyable here. Okay, please pray for my wife. This is Texan American. He says, please pray for my wife. And I'm 6 months out of work, embryo transfer in a month, and I don't want any additional delays. Okay, Father, we just pray, Lord, so much, Lord, for our brother, Lord. We know that there's a lot of need represented here, Lord. We just pray, God, that you would meet those needs. Lord, whatever is going on, you see them, you understand them. We put them in your hands. We love you, God, and thank you. And we ask these things in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, so we are looking at a lot of headlines, a lot of stuff that's happening. By the way, I think the one that perhaps may be one of the most notable centers around the very things that we are seeing happening right now in Israel. Now, I want to just say this right off the bat. I think it's important to note that we right now, as we speak, are going through the celebration of Passover. And one of the things that I think I need to mention, you didn't get it. The link didn't come through? No, it didn't. Oh, that's weird. Let me see if I can resend it here. I hope this is right. Let me see. Yep, that is. Okay. Did that go through again? Okay. Mikey, thank you, by the way, for your super chat. I appreciate it. By the way, it's interesting. Me and you had a conversation this morning via text that I'm actually going to talk about, not the specific confidential stuff, but I am going to talk about something related to the discussion that we had, and that relates to what is going on the campus of USC and campuses everywhere else. Right now, we are looking at things that I listen, I'm telling you this right now. It is worse than pre-World War II Nazi Germany. I'm telling you this right now. It is far worse because what we are seeing is we are seeing a global effort to promote anti-Semitism. Not only are we seeing a global effort to promote it, we are looking at a conglomeration of people who are making it fashionable to do something so evil. And there's a massive issue that is tied with this that is really, really, really important for us to be able to grasp, and we're going to get into this. So let's get into Passover, because I know that many of you know what Passover is. I know that many of you know the story of Passover. I know that you understand all the implications of what happened and all the things that took place. But there is a part of this story that I do think is important to remind everybody of. And that is the fact that when the first Passover took place, it was during perhaps one of the darkest times of Israel's history up until that point. Now, Israel undoubtedly went through many, many more dark times, went through many, many more difficult times, went through much more harsh times than the times represented in that current moment. But what I think is really critical and really important to bring out, and really, really necessary that we not miss, is that no matter what, when we look at and evaluate the condition of Israel and what Passover represents, it represents something that is very difficult for the average person to grasp who is not a Jew. Okay? Let's go through the story for just a second. Israel is in bondage. We know this. We have heard the story. We've read it in the Bible. We know exactly everything that the Bible tells us. Well, not exactly, but we know everything the Bible tells us concerning the story. Some people are more well-versed about the story than others are, obviously. But there are a lot of things about this story that, although you know the dialogue, although you know the characters, although you know the timeline, although you know the events that took place from within that timeline, there may be associations that will be very difficult to hold on to, especially carrying on into the modern day. And so this is why we have to have this conversation, because it's really important. Let's stop for just 1 second and evaluate what happened on the first Passover. Israel is in bondage. They're in the worst time that they have been. Remember the way that it worked with the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh saw a need to make sure that the Israelis, the Jews, stayed subservient to him because they continued to function as slaves, building an empire and a kingdom that continued to enslave them. So it wasn't just the fact that they were in some functional subjugation to a nation that held them in bondage contrary to their desire. It was that they were also helping to build and expand the very kingdom that was holding them fast in the state of slavery that they were in. This is a very, very important fact to start with. We should also note that Moses, in his younger years, was raised in the very empire that was enslaving his own people. That is a detail that is very, very important as we approach the subject of the Passover, because it will help us to create a connection that is really critical here. So Moses, as he gets older, begins to realize that there is a purpose for what he is doing. And in recognizing that he has a purpose for what he's doing, he goes out of his way to try to find a solution in his own mind that will solve the problem of the bondage that his people are actually in. This is really important to talk about. Okay? It's really, really critical that we recognize this. By the way, Vasti, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Mikey, thank you. You guys are just awesome. You guys that continue to do this, we're very, very grateful. Let me just say this, because this is really important. You must look at the condition of Israel's slavery through the eyes of a group of people who chose to live a very specific way by their understanding of what they were supposed to do in the current moment. These were people who had tremendous faith and trust in God, and in the moment that they were in slavery, recognized the condition that they were in as a function of God's sovereign hand, understanding and knowing in their minds that at some point God was going to deliver them from that place. So there was a hope within the people that knew that better days were to come. They kept going because they knew something better would come, because they knew the promise given to Abraham. They knew that one day they would obtain the promise that God said they would have in the land that God gave them. They just recognized that in the current moment it wasn't available to them. So the people were, of course, looking for the opportunity that would come for the Lord to deliver them, but it wasn't something that they were actively pursuing, because the way that they saw it, they understood it to be something that would come upon them in essence, and not something that they would have to strive for or move in the direction towards, which is part of the problem in the first place, but that's a whole other issue. We're not even going to get into that aspect, because we could spend a lot of time analyzing the condition of the minds of the people that were in that place of slavery. And we can also talk about their masters who did what they did and the reasons why they did what they did. There's a lot that, by the way, you can learn from this. As a matter of fact, there's a lot you can learn as an employer, and there's a lot you can learn as an employee by studying the simple relationship that existed between Israel and the Pharaoh. We don't have the time to have a conversation about that, because already we are going to be bombarded by many other facts that are significant to this subject before we get into the crux of the matter. So Israel is a slave to Egypt. Moses was raised in an Egyptian family, specifically the most powerful and important family in the empire at the time, that is the family of the Pharaoh. Now, the story of how that happened, we already know. There's a lot of significant things to be said about that. We already know what takes place in that story specifically, and we understand all the implications about what happened from beginning to end and how it happened, right? You have to go back to the story prior to Joseph and look at the life of his brothers when Jacob has his children and how they came about. And when you begin to analyze how all of that happened, and you begin to look at the family tree, and you begin to see the stories of the different things that these different brothers did, and then you take time to sit down and read Genesis chapter 49, where Jacob sits with his children on his deathbed and gives them their final blessings and final cursings. There are so many things that we can learn about how all of that works and how all of it tied in together. But what's more important leading into that story are the promises that God made to Israel. Now, we know the promises, right? God told Abraham, I'm going to multiply your seed. God tells Abraham that, it's going to be a substantial and actually, quite frankly, an incredible thing for him to be able to see what God will do. As a matter of fact, let me read this to you because I think it's critical. We can't sort of ignore this. I think it's a really, really important Bible passage. Let me see here. I'm going to bring it up right now because the reiteration of this story is really, really important. This is Genesis chapter 12. We're going to read out of the King James. It says, verse 1, now the Lord had said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house unto a land that I will show thee. Now it's interesting because a lot of people look at the idea of God telling Abram to leave the land, and they use that as their justification for leaving without knowing where they're going. The problem is, when you follow what you think is a biblical lead to do something like that, you're actually misguided, because there's one variable here that a lot of people don't consider, and that is the fact that Abram did not know where he was going. You're right. But God declared to him that he was going to show him where to go, so he did have the leading of the Lord. Some people tell me, well, God told me to get out of here and I have no idea where I'm going to go, but it's going to end up being revealed. Actually, sorry. God is going to give you specific direction. And if that specific direction is you get up out of here and I'm going to show you where to go, fine. But there's not a lot of people who can understand what that actually means. So he says this to Abram, and then he accompanies that with a promise. He says, this is what I'm going to do, Abram. I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. So he makes it very, very clear. You need to cut yourself off from the life that you know right now to move into this life that I have prepared for you so that you will be able to receive the promise that I have set aside for you. And he goes on to say this because it's really important. He says, I'll make you a great nation. I'll bless you. I'll make your name great. You'll be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and I will curse him that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. By the way, it's interesting because this promise that's being made carries over into the modern day. And I say this oftentimes. I say that Jews are not just a simple national treasure. Jews are a treasure to the world. And the reason why they're a treasure to the world goes back to this passage in Genesis chapter 12. Because as God promised Abraham, the Jews of this world have been a conduit for the many blessings that this world experiences today. Many of you who eat fruit would not eat the fruit that you eat if it were not for Jews. There are people that are watching this show right now that are watching me from a region that would not be able to enjoy the fruit that you eat if it were not exported from Israel. A lot of the fruits that you eat, you might think they come from South America or Florida or some of these other places, when in reality, an overwhelming amount of the type of fruit that you consume on a day-to-day basis was probably grown in the soil of Israel. Even if your fruit was not grown in Israel, I guarantee you, you are still the beneficiary of Jewish ingenuity, because the type of irrigation tools and tactics that we use today all over the world were created by Jews. My guess is under the inspiration of the Spirit of God. These are facts that we cannot ignore because God promised him. He told Abraham, through you, the families of the earth will be blessed. I think there's a reason why they're attacked so much. I think it happens a lot, right? It takes place. Guys, it would blow your mind. When you're doing the things that God asks you to do and you're doing it effectively, you're going to get attacked, and you're going to get attacked in ways you can't even begin to imagine. And that is exactly what we're seeing with the Jewish population right now. It is absolutely absurd. So when you understand all of this and you know this, then you have to go back to the condition of the slaves, the mindset of the slaves in the day who have ended up in slavery in Egypt. They all know the promises of God to Abraham. They all know what God said. They all recognize that the seed of Abraham would be blessed by God and would also be used to bless the whole world. These are all principles that should not fall upon us in a strange or foreign way. They understood what they knew to be true. They recognized it. And in doing so, they acted upon it. Now, here's the thing. In their time of slavery, they very clearly were waiting in a very passive way for a Savior to come and deliver them so that they could experience the promises that God had given them. Now, there's already a series of issues that we could get into that dispels why. Well, let me just say this, explains why that mentality is a broken mentality and dispels the idea of simply passively waiting for God to do something when God chooses to do something by asking you or tasking you to get involved. So you've got a group of people who are saying, we're waiting for God to do something miraculous to deliver us. And then you've got one guy who says, I got this. I'm just going to go do it myself. Two extremes that sit on each end of the pendulum that when both of those worlds collide, they create a significant problem. Case in point, Moses, who now has this sort of newfounded idea in his mind that he's going to deliver his people, he goes amongst his people who are slaves. Those people not knowing, of course, that he's a Jew. They think that he is a son of the Pharaoh, that he's an officer in Pharaoh's court, whatever it might be. They see and observe him killing some Egyptians who mistreat some slaves. Moses was not tenured by any stretch of the imagination. Moses had not been developed. His patience had not been tested. His character had not grown. His wisdom, maturity was not there. Oh yeah, he had a lot of knowledge, but he had no wisdom, right? I mean, if you think about it, he was raised with the best education in the world. My guess is he was remarkable in his capacity to functionally articulate any point that he needed to. He was probably a world-class speaker and a great orator. And he was ready to change the world. He was ready to go in there, and he was ready to do something that the world had never seen, at least his world, the Hebrew world. And he went to go do so, and he failed miserably. Because what happened was, when he observed the behavior of that Egyptian and killed his fellow countrymen, the next day or sometime later, he goes back to try to make peace amongst his fellow Jew. And they say, what are you going to do? Kill me like you killed the Egyptian? And of course, it was all out in the open. Moses recognized he's in a bad situation. He ends up in the desert, in the wilderness for 40 years. It took 40 years for God to bring him into a condition and a place where God would actually use him. It got to the point after 40 years that Moses could barely even talk. He literally just stuttered. Isn't that amazing how that works? Now, we could talk a lot. We could spend a lot of time talking about that specific issue. And I think that it's really easy to kind of get, I wouldn't say carried away, but to chase the rabbit trail down of the amazing lessons that you can learn by the process of humbling that God had ensued in Moses. But for purposes of this discussion, we need to fit the fast forward button into Moses listening to the call of God, finally going about this the right way, walking in, going to Pharaoh and saying, hey, Pharaoh, let my people go. Pharaoh says, okay, I'll let your people go. Not. He resists. So what happens? A plague comes. Pharaoh's not impressed. Another one comes. Pharaoh's not impressed. Another one comes. Pharaoh's not impressed. Another one comes. Uh-oh, Pharaoh's worried. He says, call it off, call it off, call it off. He does. Moses goes, Lord, please put a stop to this, blah, 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 blah. It stops, and something else happens. Because the Pharaoh doesn't hold fast to his word. It goes again and again and again and again, and it's a pattern. It's an observable pattern. It's ebbing and flowing. It's ebbing and flowing. By the way, it's interesting. God teaches us a lot of great lessons about his judgment during this time period, by the way. I spent some time talking about this at length in my Revelation 16 study that I did, I want to say a few days ago, actually. As a matter of fact, Dale will find it and put it in the link in the show notes. So that you guys, not in the show notes, but in the comment section, so that you guys have it. By the way, if you haven't subscribed to the Calvary Chapel Signal Hill Live YouTube channel, you should, because that's where all the Bible teaching goes. All right. So it's a massive ebb and flow. Up and down, up and down, up and down. Finally, God says, look, Moses, here's the deal. I am going to kill the firstborn in the land. And by the way, this is also going to affect you. Okay? I am going to affect everybody that is in Egypt, the land of Goshen, everybody. So, in order to keep the Jews from experiencing the loss of their firstborn, what do they have to do? They have to take a perfect lamb, a lamb that has no flaw at all, no blemish. You're going to have to kill that lamb, and then you're going to have to take the blood of that lamb, put it upon the doorpost of your home, and whoever is represented in that household will actually survive. So that night, what happens? A death angel comes in, it goes over Egypt and Goshen and all over. And the Bible tells us that the death angel passed over the homes that had the blood of the lamb on the doorpost. Okay? So this is very, very important. Okay? So watch this, because this is like critical. That night was a terrifying night. That night was a terrible night for so many people, because even in Goshen, you could hear the screams of the people losing their firstborn children. It's terrible. When you think about the ramifications of what that actually looks like as a parent losing your child, and in some cases not even knowing why, but knowing that everybody else is going through the same problem, folks, the implications of something like that had to have been absolutely horrifying. I just mute this for 1 second. Undoubtedly, this was no easy situation. This was a very, very difficult situation. Very, very difficult. Now, with that said, that was the very thing that caused the Pharaoh to basically let go of the children of Israel to start their journey towards the land of promise. But here's the thing that people forget, because as time goes by, they forget the pattern. And that's this. Passover, as much of a celebration as it is for the Jews, even to the current day, has always represented a time period where much turmoil is happening. And in a massive amount of those contexts, that turmoil eventually leads to the betterment of the people of Israel. And in many cases, to the world. Right? When Christ was crucified, that was during Passover. So we know that understanding this history can really help us. But here's the pattern in Passovers that everybody seems to overlook. Not everybody, but a lot of people do. And that is the fact that the Passover was a time that was filled with horror, fear, trepidation. It was a time that represented an immense amount of difficulty, hardship. And I think it's astounding right now, absolutely astounding, that as I look at the briefs from just today, look at all of the potentials of the conflict that's around us and so on and so forth, you can't help but to be surprised that it's Passover right now. You just can't. And when you start looking at what is being specifically stipulated here, it's astounding. Pro-Palestinian encampments, folks. Pro-Palestinians. Do you understand that the Biden administration or the Biden regime right now is refusing to do a standalone bill to fund Israel because of the fear of reprisal from all of these young voters who claim to be pro-Palestinian activists? But what they don't realize are the Palestinians that they seem to be defending don't give a rip about them. They don't give a rip about their own children. They don't care about any of that stuff. I would venture to say that at least the lifestyle that is represented by at least 3/4 of those protesters, 3/4 of those protesters, this is not a joke, would be the type of lifestyle that would get them killed in Gaza or any other Muslim world. Anything that's represented by Islamic law would completely dispose of the people who are doing this so-called protesting. And what makes it worse than that, like what makes it even more terrible when you think about the ramifications of it all, is that an overwhelming majority of these kids that are protesting don't even know the issues. In many cases, they don't even know what they're actually protesting. They're so deceived by the enemy They're so lost that they don't even know what they represent. I'm not kidding you. Let me just show you an example of this, okay? This is one of these protests. This was at, I think, a film festival. Okay? Watch what you see here, because what you see here is very telling. Look at what's being communicated. Because this is like staggeringly crazy. Okay? Watch this. This speaks volumes about what's going on these campuses. Watch this.
From the river to the sea, Palestine needs to be free from the occupation, which is illegal.
What's the river?
I forgot the river's name,
sea?
but the sea is the Red Sea.
What's the river? I don't know. What's a sea? The sea's the Red Sea. You understand when they say from the river to the sea that they're talking about is actually the Mediterranean. Okay? The Red Sea is far south of the Mediterranean. I mean, just understand, they don't even know the geography when they say from the river to the sea, and they have no idea what it even means. But let's continue on, because this is actually funny. And I kind of like the playful music that Noah Tishby puts here. By the way, she's a very intelligent lady. I actually had got to have a conversation with her a couple of years ago at the home of the Consul General of Israel. It's an interesting conversation, but that's to talk about for another day. Watch how ignorant these people are. They have no idea what they're representing. None. They have no idea. They're clueless. Watch this.
So where is the river and the sea that everybody's chanting about?
I think it's the Black Sea and the river on the other side of Gaza.
The Black Sea. The Black Sea. Far north. The Black Sea. I mean, north of Turkey. South of Moldova. Surrounding the area of the former USSR. Like, anyway, from the, yeah. Other side of Gaza, by the way. It's the sea on the other side of Gaza. I bet you anything she wouldn't even know where Gaza is on the map. I guarantee you she probably doesn't even know where Gaza is. Watch this. It's funny.
Okay, so it's the Black Sea and the river on the other side of Gaza.
The Palestinian genocide, it's just awful.
What about the hostages? Do you know about the hostages?
Unfortunately, I'm not that educated about that part.
The occupation is illegal.
By the way, we'll go back to him talking about the occupation is illegal, and we'll just rewind that. But can I just say how much of a disgusting lie they continue to believe, how little they're actually aware of what's going on? As a matter of fact, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to read this to you, because I've done it before. Matter of fact, I've done it many, many times. But I'm going to do it again because I think it's really, really useful to just talk about, right? Because if we don't continue to bring this to the attention of a lot of people, then we're going to forget about it. Everybody keeps talking about genocide. They go, genocide, genocide, genocide. You know where the real genocide is happening? How about this? How about in 1948 in Algeria, there were 140,000 Jews. 1948. You get to 2018, you have less than 50. In the current day, maybe 5. And even then, those 5 are probably top secret Mossad that Algeria doesn't even know about. How about this? Egypt. 75,000 in 1948. After 2018, we believe there are less than 50. Iraq. This is a great one. 135,000 Jews in Iraq in 1948. By the time you get to the current day, we believe there might be 5. Lebanon. 5,000 Jews in Lebanon in 1948. That number increased by 1958 for obvious reasons. And then by the time you got to the 70s, that number dropped to 400. By the time we got to 2011, we didn't know how many Jews were in Lebanon. There were probably none at that point. By the time we got to 2018, there were maybe 50. Right now, in 2024, There might be more than that, but that's because they are operatives that are fighting on a front to defend the security of the nation of Israel. This one's an interesting one. This is a really powerful one. Libya. 38,000 in Libya. 0 by the time you get to 2018. The number that we have today, the current day, is unknown. We don't even know. Morocco. This is dramatic. 265,000 Jews were living in Morocco in 1948. That number, and I'm not joking, that number became less than 1% by the time we got to 2018. In 2024, there may be 1,000, maybe even less than that. Actually, if I had to give a really big guess based on what happened in Spain recently, I would probably say there's maybe 100 Jews living in Morocco. In Syria, the only people living in Syria that are Jews are diplomatic sort of workers. And in more cases, they're military workers, especially some of the people that are hiding on the Syrian side of the Golan Heights. Tunisia. By the way, in Syria in 1948, there were 30,000. Tunisia, there were 105,000. By the time you get to 2024, there are very few. There's a handful. How about Yemen or Aden, for that matter? 63,000 in 1948. Now there are less than 20. In 1948, there were 851,000 Jews represented in just those nations. By the time you get to today, you're under 2,000. So just keep those figures in mind. Just keep those. And we're not talking about all the Arab nations. We're just talking about, well, all we're talking about is these nations that I have mentioned to you. Okay? Yemen, Tunisia, Syria, Morocco, Libya, Lebanon, Iraq, Egypt, Algeria. Just those nations. That's it. Now, let's take Gaza. Just Gaza, for example. In 1948, how many Arabs were in Gaza? We're talking about Egyptians during that time. My guess is 100,000. Actually, that's a wrong number. There were 100,000 Arabs, or let's just say this, Palestinians in all of Israel at the time. In 1948. 1948. Today, that number is close to 6 million. Actually, maybe even slightly larger than that. So if there's genocide, which, by the way, less than 50,000 in Gaza in 1948. Heck, let's not even consider the number in 1948. Let's go to the time where Israel took possession of Gaza after the war. In that time, 40 plus years ago, there were maybe 25,000 Palestinians living in Gaza. Maybe. How many are there now? 2 million. How about we go over this number? How about we go over a few years ago? How about we just do that? How about we go to 2015? How many Jews were in Gaza in 2015? In 2015, the number of Jews that were in Gaza, I want to say, was close to 1,000. Now, in the current day, prior to October the 7th, there were 0 Jews living in Gaza. 0. And today there are 0 Jews living in Gaza. There are Jews in Gaza right now because they're defending their own national interests. So you tell me, where's the genocide happening? Where's the genocide? They don't know. They don't know what they're talking. These people don't know what they're talking about. But listen, let's just continue. Watch the functional ignorance here.
I'm not that educated about that part.
The occupation is illegal. Even chocolate is not allowed. Wedding dresses are not allowed. It's been this way for over 15 years.
It's a genocide.
Chocolate is not allowed in Gaza. Wedding dresses are not allowed in Gaza. Oh, okay. You're just ignorant. You still know what you're talking about. If chocolate's not allowed in Gaza and wedding dresses are not allowed in Gaza, guess what? It's Hamas. That's the government. Israel hasn't been governing Gaza. So no chocolate, no wedding dresses, if that's true, which it's not, but if it is, that's because of the Islamic influence. Okay, let's continue on, because we haven't even got to the good part yet. We haven't even watched the best video that I'm going to show you that is going to be the most telling, and it is going to be eye-opening. But let's continue on.
It's not about Hamas. It's not.
How is it not about Hamas?
It's not about Hamas. Isn't even there.
Isn't where? Hamas isn't where?
Even Gaza.
I'm really glad that I froze it at this spot. Look at how psycho this lady looks. I think her name is Karen, by the way. No, I'm joking. But Hamas is not in Gaza? Is the ignorance just that incredible? This is not about Hamas. Hamas is not in Gaza. No, Hamas is in Gaza. And the Palestinians voted for them. And if they had to vote again today, over 80% of the Palestinians would vote for them today.
Hamas is not in Gaza. The Jews are in Gaza.
The Jews.
Are there hostages in Gaza right now?
Oh, I don't know.
No, I got this from someone else.
Somebody gave it to you.
Yeah.
Do you know what it means?
No.
What are you demonstrating for or against?
Against the occupation of Palestine.
So support for the Black Sea to the other river to be liberated.
To be liberated from the occupation.
Does Israel have the right to exist at all?
I think the state of Israel should be dissolved.
So do you know what happened to women on October 7th?
I've heard things. I've also heard that they're not confirmed.
Not confirmed. The rape incidences are not confirmed?
I'm not sure.
What about the hostages?
They're confirmed. Oh, yeah. I've seen the terrible videos. I've heard the men in Arabic bragging about their heinous and vile actions. I watched them yelling out Allahu Akbar while they were doing the evil that they were doing. Oh, it's confirmed. Let's go back and show you a demonstration of how crazy these people are. Watch this. It's interesting.
What about the hostages?
Fire no!
Are there any hostages?
Fire no!
You can't help but to laugh because, look, that's how these leftists are. They don't even want to talk because they're completely ignorant. But instead of me sharing what you might perceive to be my side of the story or the Israeli side of the story, how about we do this? How about I play a video for you? And this is very relevant, okay? It's going to make a lot of sense. I think it will help you be able to better understand what's really happening here, okay? What's going on. But how about I play a video for you where you hear out of the mouth of the terrorists? But before we do that, can I go back? Can I play a class? I want to just play a classic before I do this, right? This classic will show you just how ignorant people are regarding this issue. This is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez being interviewed before she was even voted into office, okay? Watch how ignorant she is regarding the subject and how ignorant she continues to remain. This is classic AOC. This is classic ignorant girl. Watch this. By the way, Diane Graham, thank you so much. Watch this.
Of course, the dynamic there in terms of geopolitics and the war in the Middle East is very different than people expect.
Let me start that again.
But of course, the dynamic there in terms of geopolitics and the war in the Middle East is very different than people expressing their First Amendment right to protest.
Well, yes, but I also think that what people are starting to see, at least in the occupation of Palestine, is just an increasing crisis of humanitarian condition. And that, to me, is just where I tend to come from on this issue. You use the term
the humanitarian condition. You understand? She sounds many, many years ago the same way that she sounds today using the same company line. humanitarian condition, occupation. They were saying this long before October the 7th. They're lies. She's a liar. But let's continue on. Actually, in this case, I just think she's actually stupid. Like in this case, she doesn't even know any better. She's just been taught. She's been handed a script and told, you're to say this. She doesn't even understand. And right now she's actually going to show you and admit how ignorant she is of forget the geopolitical implications that might be significant here, but she doesn't even understand the cultural implications. None. She's ignorant. Might actually be one of the, well, I'm going to leave this alone, but here we go.
Occupation of Palestine? What did you mean by that?
I think what I meant is like the settlements that are increasing in some of these areas and
You do understand that an overwhelming majority of these settlements that she's talking about that have been increasing are not just some group of people that decide to move in and take away everybody's land. These were properties that belonged to them originally that were taken away by squatters. But that's a whole other issue. I'm not even going to get into that. That's a whole other, the courts have ruled on it, all that stuff. I'm not even going to get into it. But just listen to the functional ignorance that exists in the speech of this woman. It's just unbelievable.
In some of these areas and places where Palestinians are experiencing difficulty in access to their housing and homes.
Do you think you can expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd also just, I am not the expert on geopolitics on this issue.
You think you can expound upon that? Well, I'm not the expert in geopolitics on this issue. Then forgive me for saying this and shut your mouth. Look, I'm sorry. But if you're not the expert in geopolitics in this issue, then why are you running your mouth as though you are? Because you're saying ignorant and foolish and deceptive things. Right? Okay. You want a real picture of what it's looking like? I'm not even going to translate this for you because the translation is actually phenomenal. Memory does a very, very good job of translating what one of the leaders of Hamas is saying. Watch what he says. And as a matter of fact, in this case, I think what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to switch it over so that you can actually see it as a full screen like this. And oh, let me fix this here. I'm going to live TV. It's always kind of funny how that works. Watch this. This is quite interesting. This, by the way, is correctly translated by memory. This is a leader of Hamas being interviewed very likely in Qatar. Look what he says. It's very telling. And I won't even disrupt this one. I'll just let you watch this. Actually, I will at one point because I have to explain something that happens in the Arabic language. Watch this.
هذا المعركة 7 أكتوبر فتحت أفق لموضوع الرؤية السياسية وهنا يعودون إلى بضاعتهم القديمة حل الدولتين.
So I do want to say this. One thing that doesn't carry over really well with the translation that you just read, when he says what he says it opened up a new opportunity for us to take advantage. Literally, the way that they would call it is merchandise the two-state solution narrative, right? But he's about to dispel the two-state solution desire that they claim to have. Listen to what he says here. This is really important. Actually, you have to read what he says if you don't speak Arabic. If you speak Arabic, it's even more astounding.
وهنا أقول مسألتين في حل الدولتين. المسألة الأولى نحن لا نقبل حل الدولتين. هذا مصطلح مرفوض لأنه معناه أنك أنت لك دولة موعودة ومطلوب أنك أيضا تعترف بالدولة الأخرى اللي هي الكيان الصهيوني تعترف بشرعيته. فهذه مرفوضة. نحن نطلب التحرر تخلص من الاحتلال ونريد استقلالنا ودولتنا. أنا غير مع هذا عدوي أنا غير معني به. أنا
So he says, because what you're about to see next is probably more eye-opening than what you've just heard. He says, basically, I'm not interested. None of us are interested in a two-state solution. Because if there's a two-state solution, that means Jews live in our state. We believe in a single-state solution that's all of Palestine. We live in our country, and Jews are wiped off the map. It's basically what he's saying. He's talking about a single Palestinian state. It's the only thing that he's interested in. He literally is calling for the genocide of Jews. That's what he's calling for. That word gets thrown around so much that people just minimize it nowadays. But he's calling for the destruction of Jewish lives. All Jewish lives. I mean, this is the same guy that said we would do it again and again and again and again in reference to October the 7th. So why is anybody surprised? And Mikey, you're right. We shouldn't be surprised, right? A servant can't serve two masters. Their master is the father of lies. You're 100% right, Mikey. You're 100% right. Look what he goes on to say. This is where it becomes eye-telling. Because what he's about to tell the whole world is, we don't have to work hard to make our case, because in essence, these stupid American kids are making the case for us. Look what he says.
دولتنا اللي هي أي دولة
فلسطينية.
أي دولة فلسطينية.
طبعا إحنا بالنسبة لموقف حماس وموقف الشعب الفلسطيني في أغلبيته العظمى خاصة بعد 7 أكتوبر.
Stop. I have to say this really quickly. Notice he didn't just say this is the position of Hamas. He says this is the position of Hamas and an overwhelming majority of the Palestinian people. He's not lying. It's the position of Hamas and the Palestinian people. It's both their positions. I wish people could speak Arabic or understand what he's saying, because if you can understand Arabic the way I'm understanding Arabic, you'll understand the emphatic significance of the terminology that he is presenting here. It is religious in nature. No joke.
أظن تجدد الحلم والأمل. فلسطين من البحر إلى النهر، من الشمال إلى الجنوب. وهذا حتى كما.
By the way, he added this. From the river to the sea, from the north to the south. Meaning I want to eliminate all of Israel. That's in essence what he's doing. But let's take this a step further. Because what he's about to tell you is that this has become the mantra of the United States and in Western main cities. And he's right. He's going to talk about our people right now.
قلت لك أصبح شعار في الولايات المتحدة وفي العواصم الغربية وعند الجمهور الغربي الأمريكي والغربي إنه الشعب فلسطين حرة من النهر إلى البحر. هذه شعار الطلاب الأمريكان وفي العواصم الأوروبية كذلك. مشروعنا الفلسطيني اللي عليه شبه إجماع وطني فلسطيني، حتى اللي عنده رأي مضطر أن يقوله بسبب.
He gets really intense in another aspect of this, but we obviously, for time, we don't have the time to be able to go over this. But that is very eye-opening in nature. Let me give you an update on what I have so far. And I have 12 pages of documentation of some of the most insane things I've ever seen in the news cycle. But let me just tell you what everybody is calling low-intensity conflict. What people don't realize is what people deem as being low-intensity conflict, because it is low intensity compared to what's happening in Gaza, Ukraine, all that, is creating a pathway for wickedness all over the world. Okay, let me read you some of these, because this is crazy, okay? Indianapolis, Indiana. Today, 7:30 in the morning. What are they doing? They're going to have a rally for Gaza. Cambridge, Massachusetts, rally for Gaza. Durham, New Hampshire. Shut it down for Palestine. It's just New York to New York. They have organized a protest of Zionist Christo-fascists. That's what they're calling them. Why are they calling them Zionist Christo-fascists? Because my friend Sean Folk wants to do a worship service for hundreds of people to gather, if not thousands, to pray for Israel. So they want to disrupt them in New York. Syracuse, New York. Democratic Socialists of America and other far-left activists organize a protest against President Joe Biden because they say Genocide Joe is not welcome in Syracuse. Why? Because he's allowing funding to go to Israel. And why do you think it is that Joe Biden is turning his back on Israel the way he's turning his back on Israel? Because he recognizes that he is losing the vote of all of these leftists, these cuckoo leftists that have been feeding into him. It's crazy. By the way, it's interesting with the cuckoo leftists, and we've actually talked about this because it's like a sort of an interesting, kind of an interesting picture, okay? With the leftists that we're talking about, okay? The whole reason why they elected Joe Biden, was to do what? Was to be able to have a person that they could tell what to do. Here it is. We want you to do this, Joe Biden, so go do it. And if you can't, we're going to get rid of you and we're going to find somebody else. We're going to go find somebody else that will do our bidding. By the way, if you don't believe that's true, let me show you a video of Rush Limbaugh. By the way, it's really, really funny what he does here, because what I show you here is going to be mind-boggling. I actually did a video on this, by the way. But look at what Rush identifies. And this is not one of those like Rush is right, was right type things. I don't even want to get into like his commentary on this person or that person, although Rush was quite astute and he was very wise. I want you to pay attention to the bigger issue here. He is going to play a quote from somebody who is a clear leftist. Very obviously a leftist. A champion of the leftists. Look at what this person actually says concerning controlling Joe Biden. And this becomes significant, right? Like, I need you guys to understand what's happening here because we haven't even seen the end of it yet. Watch this. This is very, very interesting. Oh, let me do this really quickly. Let me go back here. Let me fix this. Live videos sometimes get weird. Okay, here we go. Let me make sure this is right.
And Angela Davis, former president, vice president, U.S. Communist Party. These Marxists and commie pinkos go all the way back to the 60s. Anyway, here is what she said about her group, the radical left, and their preference in this presidential election.
I don't see this.
Let me back up to, let me just say this before we play Angela Davis talking. If you don't know who Angela Davis is, she's not a good person, okay? I just want you to know that, okay? She's a hardcore activist that is seeking to destroy our country. So listen, this is, by the way, in 2020. She's going to admit that Joe Biden is he's not a leader. Joe Biden is an actually empty shell. But she's going to tell everybody why she likes him and why her people like him. She's going to get into it. Listen to what she says.
In this presidential election.
I don't see this election as being about choosing a candidate who will be able to lead us in the right direction. It will be about choosing a candidate who can be most effectively pressured into allowing more space for the evolving anti-racist movement. Biden is very problematic in many ways, but, I say but, Biden is far more likely to take mass demands seriously.
Do you realize how profound what you just heard is?
I hope you do realize how profound that statement is. I hope you recognize how serious of a statement that you just heard coming out of the mouth of Angela Marxist Davis. Angela devil-worshipping Davis. She just basically told you the whole reason why they love Sleepy Joe is because he'll do whatever they want him to do. And now they're saying, we don't like Sleepy Joe anymore. He's now Genocide Joe because he is helping Israel. And actually, he's not even really helping Israel. We're not going to vote for Genocide Joe because he is helping the oppressor. Do we understand the complexities of the nonsense that we're seeing? And again, the level of deception that exists here, the level, the type of people that are saying the things that they're saying don't even know what they're saying. This is an interesting one. This is the founder of Woke Kindergarten. If you don't know who she is, she's also another interesting one. My heart breaks for her because you could see it in her. She's struggling. She's looking for some kind of a new way of living, I think. I don't know. She's miserable. She's wearing a scarf that represents something amongst Palestinians that would actually get her killed if she was in the city, in the middle of downtown Gaza. She is a black woman who identifies herself as trans, I believe. Do you understand how quickly they would eliminate a person like her in any Muslim country? But look what she says.
Yes, everyone, the rumors are true. I am anti-Israel. I am pro-Palestine. And I am 100% 10 toes down anti-Israel. I believe Israel has no right to exist. I believe the United States has no right to exist. I believe every settler colony who has committed genocide against native peoples, against indigenous people, has no right to exist.
Even though she is the recipient of the capitalistic, colonialist, oppressive system that she claims to want to abolish. If she stepped into downtown Gaza, we all know what would happen to her.
I believe in a free Palestine, from the river to the sea. I believe one day Palestine will be free. Is this news to anybody? White supremacy.
It's just, it means, she's just ignorant. She to me, this girl is the literal picture. Like, she is the picture of how good the devil is at deceiving people. Now, I want to play something, and I'm going to do it uninterrupted. I will talk about it after he talks, because I think it's that important. I'm going to play Bibi Netanyahu talk about something that is happening across the campuses. I'm going to read the stats on this in just a second. But listen to what Bibi says regarding this issue. And by the way, I'm going to just say this right now. I 100% agree with him. He is 100% right. What he says is critically important here. So I think we should take a listen. Let's listen to what he says, and then we'll get into some commentary regarding what's actually happening and what he's referring to.
What's happening on America's college campuses is horrific. Anti-Semitic mobs have taken over leading universities. They call for the annihilation of Israel. They attack Jewish students. They attack Jewish faculty. This is reminiscent of what happened in German universities in the 1930s. It's unconscionable. It has to be stopped. It has to be condemned, and condemned unequivocally. But that's not what happened. The response of several university presidents was shameful. Now, fortunately, state, local, federal officials, many of them have responded differently, but there has to be more. More has to be done. It has to be done not only because they attack Israel, that's bad enough. Not only because they want to kill Jews wherever they are, that's bad enough. It's also, when you listen to them, it's also because they say not only death to Israel, death to the Jews, but death to America. And this tells us that there's an anti-Semitic surge here that has terrible consequences. We see this exponential rise of anti-Semitism throughout America and throughout Western societies as Israel tries to defend itself against genocidal terrorists who hide behind civilians. Yet it is Israel that is falsely accused of genocide, Israel that is falsely accused of starvation and all sundry war crimes. It's all one big libel, but that's not new. We've seen in history that anti-Semitic attacks were always preceded by vilification and slander. Lies that were cast against the Jewish people that are unbelievable, yet people believe them. And what is important now is for all of us who are interested and cherish our values and our civilization, to stand up together and to say enough is enough. We have to stop anti-Semitism, because anti-Semitism is the canary in the coal mine. It always precedes larger conflagrations that engulf the entire world. So I ask all of you, Jews and non-Jews alike, who are concerned with our common future and our common values, to do one thing. Stand up, speak up, be counted. Stop anti-Semitism now.
So there's so much to say about this. So what's he talking about? Well, he's talking about something that we're observing right now that is far worse than anything we saw during World War II Germany. We are looking at a global movement right now for the hatred of Jews. Let me read some of these to you. Let me read the premise of this. Police cleared and attempted to clear a number of pro-Palestine protest encampments yesterday, arresting hundreds of activists in the process. Protests are ongoing on 20 college campuses as of this morning. Folks, that's not an exaggeration. It is 20 college campuses as of the morning that I am broadcasting right now. I'm not joking. Let's go over the list. By the way, these are all schools you don't want to go to. These are all brainwash centers. Berkeley, California. Protesters are encamped at the University of California, Berkeley to demand divestment of university funds from Israel-connected businesses. By the way, it's really funny. If Berkeley alone chooses to divest from Israel-connected business, Berkeley as a city would be dead. The economy would fail. The very protection that the citizens of Berkeley rely upon comes from the utilization of critical technological tools provided by Israeli engineers. No joke. I know this firsthand, by the way, because I was the chief information officer of a local municipal police department for many, many years. And a lot of the technology we deployed was Israeli. I'm very proud to have signed the contracts for those. We didn't just do it because they were Jewish. We did it because it was the best technology available. Los Angeles, California, police arrested. I know this, by the way, firsthand. I have friends, dear, close friends, one specifically I can think of, that was in the middle of all of this. as a police officer. Police arrested 93 protesters during the clearing of the protests at the University of Southern California, which, by the way, they're going for round 2 tonight. And then they're going to go for round 3 if they still don't get the message. Boston. Police arrested 108 individuals in the clearing of the encampment at Emerson College last night. Ann Arbor. This is Michigan, folks. 120 protesters attended a rally yesterday at the University of Michigan. Unconfirmed whether or not there were arrests, I don't know. New Haven, Connecticut. Yale University police arrested and issued court summonses to 47 students. 47, folks. 47 students at pro-Palestinian encampment and protest. Princeton, New Jersey. Princeton University president said the protest encampment violates university policies. University of New Mexico police cleared a pro-Palestine student encampment but did not require students to leave the campus. Syracuse, New York. We know about this one. Protesters at Syracuse University are scheduled to hold another rally today. Today, Thursday. They say it's going to be a big one. More people will probably get arrested. New York City, New York. NYPD arrested more than 150 demonstrators. That's what they call them, right? At NYU. This happened on Monday. New York City, New York. NYPD arrested more than 100 demonstrators at Columbia University after university president Netanyahu called for police to intervene. Interesting. Netanyahu. Sounds like an Arab. Someone Middle Eastern. Nemet might actually come from India. I'd have to go back and look. I'd have to go look that up. I'll find it. Maybe they'll do that. Look that up for me. Nematshafik. I'm thinking either because of the name Nemet, it could be India or it could be Pakistan. I know some people from Saudi Arabia that carry that name, but that's because they have a history indigenous to other areas closer to the Indian Ocean. But you look it up, tell me. State College, PA, Pennsylvania. Protesters at Penn State University are scheduled to hold another rally today. Nashville, Tennessee. Students at Vanderbilt University. Vanderbilt, folks. Began a pro-Palestine encampment 3 weeks ago alongside a sit-in at the chancellor's office. 3 students who participated in the sit-in were expelled. Austin, Texas. Police cleared the University of Texas encampment yesterday, arresting more than 30 protesters in the process. Around 150 protesters later appeared at the Travis County Jail chanting, "Let them out." Brunswick, New Jersey. National Students for Justice in Palestine announced an encampment at Rutgers. Boy, here's my question about, because it's a funny name, right? Students for Justice in Palestine. National Students for Justice in Palestine. Justice according to what? American law or Sharia law? Because if it's according to Sharia law, you don't even survive. Cambridge, Massachusetts. Student at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Yes, that's MIT, folks. Started an encampment this week and are calling for MIT to cut ties with the Israeli military. These are the people that'll be writing your word processors. Stanford, California. Students at Stanford University conducted a solidarity march on campus. Guess for who? Medford, Massachusetts. You would think it'd be Medford, Oregon with this one. Students at Tufts University set up 6 tents on the academic quad to demand Tufts divest from any companies with ties to Israel. And that means you lose half your operations. Charlottesville, Virginia. Protesters at the University of Virginia are expected to hold a rally tonight. Washington, D.C. Protesters at Georgetown University are scheduled to hold another rally today. St. Louis. This is an interesting one. The Washington University Police Department shut down a pro-Palestinian encampment. A protester said, "We will leave, but protests will continue." United Auto Workers Union. This is an interesting one. Is beginning to get involved over an issue not related to the Palestinians, but certainly one related to what we just heard from Rush with Angela Davis's commentary. Kind of funny when you think about that stuff. Folks, here's the deal. We went back and we talked about Passover and how the Jews are in the midst of the Passover right now, right? Did we find out what nationality they were? Yeah. You're looking, okay, it's okay. We can look it up later. It's not that big of a deal. Folks, Israel is in the midst of the most difficult time of their life. They are. There is no Jew alive today that has been through worse other than the Holocaust survivors. And even then, this is probably feeling worse for them because they never thought they would see a repeat of the type of dynamics that they're beginning to experience. And we're in the Passover. That's what's happening. Think about it. No way he's Egyptian. She's Egyptian, really? Nemet's not an Egyptian name. Maybe it's supposed to be Shafiq? Oh, that's interesting. I really have to go look at that. Very, very interesting. I wonder where that name came from then, because it's not common. Okay, so that might be wrong. It is right?
Maybe it's a married name.
Yeah, it could be a married name. No, but Shafiq, yeah, it's the first name that's interesting to me. Let me take a look. Yeah, especially that's her maiden name? Yeah, that's not Egyptian. That's not even remotely Egyptian. That's interesting. Okay, well, it's beside the point. My whole point is this, folks. Israel is going through an extraordinarily difficult time right now. And it's all happening in the midst of the celebration of the Passover, which is a time that commemorates God keeping death from affecting his people as a result of their people walking in obedience to him. I think there's two lessons we can learn from this. Number one, the first lesson that we can learn, and it's obvious, and it's the one that will never leave us, and that's the fact that God will protect his people, Israel, with or without us. He will, because that's what he does. He's in the business of doing that. But the second thing, and perhaps the more significant variable that we learn from all of this, is this. The prophecy of the Passover is real, in that we know that the perfect Lamb of God who took away the sins of the world, who was crucified during the Passover, has made available to us the very thing that will bring to us salvation. It's the very thing that gives us hope. It's the very thing that gives us direction, understanding, discernment, and clarity of mind and thought to know what to do next. Folks, here's the exhortation as we wrap it up today. I need you to think through all of these matters and find what I know is the biblical direction on everything that you pursue and what happens. It's really, really, really important, guys, that you understand this for what it is. Guys, if we lose sight of the reality of what we're seeing right now in the current moment, it will absolutely cause us to lose our understanding and discernment of what is true. We cannot ignore this anymore. We can't just look at this and say, "Oh, well, you know what? I'm just gonna believe this for what it is, and I'm just gonna move on, and I'm gonna do whatever is fitting for the rest of the world." It doesn't work that way. If you do that, you're gonna land yourself in bigger trouble than you can possibly imagine, because things are going really wrong. By the way, I don't know if you've ever heard Gilad Erdan speak, right, to the UN. Tomorrow I'm going to feature a video where he addressed the UN, and it's going to be really, really good. But I want you to listen to his address to the United Nations Security Council. This wasn't the one that he did a few days ago. This isn't the one that he did on the 18th. This is the one that he did a while ago. But what he says here is also like unbelievably profound. And it proves a point. The UN itself, in the moment that we're in and the time that we're in, continue to promote terrorists. Like, I'm not even kidding, folks. They're continuing to promote evil people. This is what they do. Look what he says about this. This is very interesting. Let's take a listen.
Look at this picture. This picture tells you everything you need to know about this conflict. This is Haj Amin al-Husseini, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, and one of the founding fathers of Palestinian nationalism. Al-Husseini dedicated his life to ensuring that there would be no Jewish presence in Israel or in any Arab land. And it was the Mufti's ideology which sparked the expulsion of Jews from Arab countries and Iran. A century ago, Council members, over 1 million Jews lived in Arab countries. 1 million Jews. Yet today, there are only a couple thousands. Where did all the Jews disappear to? The Jews of Lebanon, the Jews of Syria, Yemen, Iraq, and Iran, they were expelled. So enough with the hypocrisy.
What a powerful, powerful statement. What a powerful statement. Oh, you know what I recognized? I wasn't even playing the video for you guys. Let me go back and play the video again. This is live. This is what happens when live stuff takes place. I didn't realize I wasn't playing the video. Let me go back and do this because it is important. I want you to watch this. Here we go. Let's do it one more time.
Look at this picture. This picture tells you everything you need to know about this conflict. This is Haj Amin al-Husseini, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, and one of the founding fathers of Palestinian nationalism. Al-Husseini dedicated his life to ensuring that there would be no Jewish presence in Israel or in any Arab land. And it was the Mufti's ideology which sparked the expulsion of Jews from Arab countries and Iran. A century ago, Council members, over 1 million Jews lived in Arab countries. 1 million Jews. Yet today, there are only a couple thousands. Where did all the Jews disappear to? The Jews of Lebanon, the Jews of Syria, Yemen, Iraq, and Iran, they were expelled. So enough with the hypocrisy.
It's pretty powerful. To me, it's amazing that this is a problem that continues to be prevalent, but people don't simply take the time to examine the facts. What the man is saying here is uniquely viable. Okay? It's critical. And the thing that I look at here on a regular basis that it just completely blows my mind is how ignorant you actually have to be. Like you have to be completely blind on so many levels to be able to allow yourself to believe this kind of nonsense. Like that's a thing that just blows my mind. Like how in the world can you even accept the premise that this is even a viable way to look at something? Guys, we're talking about something that is this dark. It's right in front of our faces. How do we not see this? How is this something that we can't, like, honestly, I'm not trying to be difficult here, everybody. How do we not see what's obvious in front of us? And I look, I say this again and again and again and again because the devil is so good at what he does. Guys, look, it's very difficult to be able to describe the depth of what I'm saying when I say that the devil is a liar. Can you guys just please compute that in your mind? History is repeating itself. This happened in the original Passover. It's happening right now. It continues to be a problem. We're not talking about something that just popped up out of nowhere and just sits and exists. It's a serious deal, you guys. It's serious. As Christians, why are we not waking up? Why are we not recognizing this for what it is? We are looking at the world right now, taking every step necessary to methodically eliminate the Jewish race. They don't just want to eliminate the Jewish state. Folks, can I just say that again? They do not want to just eliminate the state of Israel. That's not sufficient for them. The elimination of the Jewish state will not satisfy their bloodlust. They want to eliminate all of God's chosen people. Guys, why is it you think that they actually want to eliminate America? They want to get rid of America because they hate Christians. Christians are next on their list. So if we don't stop for a moment and take a stand and talk about what's really going on, we're making the path for our own elimination and our own destruction. I do not understand how we continue to let people get away with this stuff. All right. I know our show was long. We are going to close in prayer. I think there were just a few people. By the way, we are going to go to locals. We're going to take some questions live, which I'm looking forward to do. Oh, Diane Graham, I missed your super chat. Thank you. So let's do that. Let's close in prayer, and we'll go and take some live questions, okay? Father in heaven, we just thank you, Lord, for your goodness and your faithfulness to us, Lord. We thank you for all that you've done for us, Lord, all that you continue to do for us. Lord, you're just really good to us, Lord, and we thank you for that goodness. Keep us focused on you, seeking you, walking with you, Lord, close to you. Keep us aware, Lord, of what you're doing. We just love you, God, and thank you. We look to you, and we ask these things in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, you guys, God bless you. We'll see you on Locals in about 5 minutes. Dale and I will take some questions together. We'll spend some time with you guys. We love you. God bless you.